Hello and welcome back to Serious Social. We've got a bit of a different episode for you today. I'm here with Katie Howe, the mother of IF and the queen of social media, and we're going to be chatting about what organisations have been struggling with social media. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what you've been up to talking to brands?
Yeah, I mean, this week I've been out and about, and I like to talk. But actually, there's quite an interesting common thread that's happening. A couple of the larger brands have been talking to me about how do they organise their social marketing across regions and across countries or even across departments. And one of the big challenges they face is how do they rein that in, partly because these organisations have the social has sprouted up sort of somewhat autonomously, and now they need to pull it back and make it more organised. And they're challenged particularly by internal politics, the need to have localisation but some form of control, the need to have cultural variation depending on countries. And this is exacerbated quite often by the fact they don't actually know what social profiles they have. And whilst that wasn't the case for the ones I just spoke to this last few weeks, in the past we've been with organisations where we've had to audit and find out where all their channels are in the first place so we can work out what they're doing. So a bit of a legacy.
Wow. So it sounds like it's not just about structuring the social media, but also like unpicking the older ways of working and the legacy ways of working. So where's a good place to start for these sorts of brands?
Well, that's actually really interesting because that's the challenge in this, and the easiest way to start is to start with a kind of a framework. It doesn't mean that will be the answer, but a framework allows you to kind of push against the challenges, that you actually have a place to start and a place to progress it. And there are three very common frameworks. The first one is a kind of command center. It's a top-down approach that means that you have a great deal more control around your messaging, your branding, and even your content and your creativity. And the advantage being, of course, is it allows you not only that degree of control over what's being said, but a degree of control over the budgets. Probably the most common one we see is what's called hub and spoke or multiple hub and spoke. So that is a slightly different approach. That's now saying we have centres or centre of excellence, and that the responsibility of that organisation then is to share best practice, teach, learn, and support, and sometimes offer direction, and sometimes offer sort of global campaigns. But the reality is that then allows the local countries or departments to operate a little bit more flexibly within their own environment. The last one you don't see very often. I mean, I call it empowered. It's sometimes called holistic, which is where everyone in the organisation is empowered to do social media marketing. And it works really well where you have a kind of customer-centric organisation that already is sort of facing outwards and listening inwards, and it fits the organisation that can that has that trust in their own culture, and their trusted culture can then go out and talk to customers. But it not only engages customers, it also engages employees, so it works brilliantly. I think that the challenge is, as I said right at the beginning, is that all of these are just frameworks. That I've never seen one exactly fit this. There are always versions of it, and in reality there are some negatives to each of those. So the command approach, for instance, is quite dictatorial. It's quite a heavy investment centrally, and one of the other challenges is it's hard to localise when you're central. It's hard to think about the differences. The hub and spoke mechanic requires, whilst it doesn't require such a big investment centrally, it does require people to keep on the front foot. Best practice teaching is quite an investment, especially if you're working globally. And then we've got the final one, which is that holistic approach, that empowered approach, which frankly, if you have hierarchy in your organisation, it kind of falls apart a bit. It really works with startups and the new sort of disruptive organisations and smaller organisations. Okay. Doesn't really work with the big traditional companies.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot of different ways of working that, there's no one cookie cutter approach to organising and structuring your social media department. And it definitely sounds like there are pros and cons of each.
Yeah.
So where's a good place for an organisation to start when it comes to sort of maybe choosing one of these approaches?
Yeah, and that actually that's the point, isn't it? Because I think there is a big challenge because you can. It's a bit like looking at sort of the whole pie. Well, in my case, asking yourself how you might eat it. In my case, quite quickly, but it's quite hard to look at the whole thing. And the real key to this is to take baby steps. If you take baby steps, you're able to test and prove along the way, and that also allows you to change direction. When the barriers hit you, you're able to go, well, if that isn't working, this is the way that we need to try it. So it's about taking quite bite-sized pieces across a kind of a roadmap to getting to a framework that will work for you, using the basis of those frameworks that are already in place. The second one is looking for the little tiny details and the signs. This is why you need to take some time to do this. I'll give you an example. We work for a big travel organisation. We looked at audiences and discovered that Britain operates very different to the rest of Central Europe and EMEA in terms of its audience. So in mainland Europe, families, 3 generations of families go on holiday. It's amazing. Grandmas, granddads, kids, everybody goes. Probably the dog as well. In the UK, when you're targeting younger folk, they tend to not go on holiday. So the sort of 16, 17 to about 25 will actually not go away with their families. They will go away in groups of and gangs. And that means you need to change the way you structure your creative output so that visually it changes through that process. And that would be, say, one tip within a whole framework which tells you how you need to organise that maybe one country or 3 countries are behaving separately or differently to the rest. And so now you can reorganise your structure around that. And then you've got senior buy-in. So often what happens is people are recognising the need for a little bit more structure to their social media marketing, but they still haven't got senior buy-in. And the temptation is to go through this process and then get senior buy-in, when actually what you should be doing is getting the senior buy-in right at the very beginning. The other word of warning, I'd say, is that what you find yourself doing through part of this process, a bit like any form of planning and strategy, is just spinning plates. So you spin plates like crazy. So we're looking at audiences at the same time as trying to work out how localization will fit into this, at the same time while looking at cultural differences and separate messaging, and you're spinning a lot of plates. And as long as you understand that there will be points when you're trying to get everything to line up, that you have to have everything moving at the same time, you'll cope. It'll be fine. And I guess the last thing is social media changes so much. In the process of doing this, if you're taking your time and taking those baby steps, what tends to happen is not only just social change, but you meet barriers that require change. So expect any roadmap to also alter its course as you go through it. Now, I've made it sound terribly complicated, but I feel like sometimes when people talk about how you plan for organising social media, what they don't do is tell you about what to expect on that journey, and to take your time and take a deep breath and understand that cultural, social and organisational change within a company takes time.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for that. We've spoken a lot today about how to organise social media within your organisation, and I've asked Katie a lot of questions, but if you have any more questions for us, just tweet us at IFTweeter, and if you'd like to follow any more of our Serious Social videos, just go to the hashtag Serious Social or go to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.